because school districts have been closed so much. But I am glad that they are back open today, and I'm very excited to be joined by our next guest. This is Leah Harper. She's a local mom of two and a life coach, and I mentioned that school has been impacted because this is a conversation we were supposed to have last week, but because of the snow, my daycare being closed, your school's being closed, we pushed it to today. Yeah. Thank you for making time to come in here.
Absolutely, very excited to be here.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh gosh, where to start?
I know. Let's cast the wide net.
For a while. Yeah, so I do have two kids, ages 9 and 6. We live outside of St. Louis. What else do you want to know?
Born and raised in the area.
Born and raised outside of St. Louis. I moved to college in Springfield, Missouri, then upped and moved to Northern Kentucky. I worked in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay.
And then moved back home to start having our family around family. And that's what really landed us here.
And doesn't it make such a difference when there is someone you've known for a while, kind of close by, that you can lean on after the week so many of us just had, trying to juggle all this stuff with kids, especially when there's severe weather?
Yes, absolutely. It's been extremely helpful in those moments where I had to phone a family member, say, hey, can you help me out? And most of the time they're willing.
So many St. Louisans have decided to move back to start their family, and we are so thankful for that. Leah is here today because we just recorded an interview that you are going to see on today's My St. Louis Live, so definitely tune in for My Mom Club. And what I like about you is a few things. First and foremost, this gal puts herself out there. You emailed me back in November, and like a crazy person, I didn't get back to you until January, so I do apologize, but better late than never. But you put yourself out there to say, hey, I have something that I think would fit for the Mom Club segments, and that involved the idea of a mommy low moment. We're going to talk about that throughout this conversation, but right off the bat, what does that mean to you? How would you define that to someone?
Oh, so honestly, I think it's when you realize that I am not behaving as the mom that I truly wanted to be. And for me personally, I was yelling at my kids more. I was very short-tempered. I was impatient. I just felt like I was failing. I couldn't keep it all together. And that's just where I was hitting that moment of like, whoa, I need to make some changes.
Good on you, because I think a lot of us can continue going through life the way it is and just say, well, that's how it is, and not look in the mirror and have those hard conversations with ourselves. Was there a time that you were noticing this specifically?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable sharing that?
I absolutely am. So I would say it was during the COVID moments of 2020. I had a 5-year-old and a toddler at the time. I do recall a day that I had just finished some paperwork, sending an email to the school, and probably within that hour there was another email that bounced back saying, hey, kindergarten is starting virtually. That moment kind of took the wind out of me, and I was like, what? A lot of us didn't plan for that. And so then going forward, trying to juggle having your child who's 5, who's not really familiar with iPads very much, or the strangers on the screen, being engaged in the learning that was happening, and then also having your toddler running around wanting to be a part of it. It was moments that was high stress. I was trying to also run a business to keep income coming. I felt the pressure, and unfortunately I had many moments where I just snapped, and it was towards my children, and that truly wasn't the root cause of why am I losing my marbles.
So did you figure out why?
Yeah, I do. I really think I was in that mentality of like a scarcity mentality. I thought that my work had to come first, that I did fully have to have the weight of this world on my shoulders, and that it was my responsibility to keep our family upheld and in running smoothly.
And let's be honest, that's kind of how society is set up these days. And I think our generation of parents, both moms and dads, are doing a better job of acknowledging that. My mom has said many times that how my husband parents and how my brother-in-law parents is very different than how my dad did. And I think expectations are changing, but still so much does fall on the mom. And throw in the most extreme case during COVID, which so many of you at home are nodding along, whatever life stage you're in during that time, the weight of the world was on your shoulders, because you also didn't know if at any moment you were going to get sick, were your kids going to get sick, were those around you? So how did you make a change?
Yeah, so first I did start to get involved in some groups because I needed that support. I needed to be surrounded by different moms in that same stage that I was in. Like, we need a support system. We cannot do this alone. We're meant to be connected. I also then just started really asking myself some questions of really deeply understanding what's happening here. Some of it did root back to my own childhood, and I was recognizing that maybe the age-appropriate behaviors that my, let's say, daughter was displaying, the toddler, you know, at that time, it was triggering me, but it wasn't really that age-appropriate behavior that she was doing. It was something deeper, and I really, truly felt like that was the inner little girl within me who was hurting, kind of knocking at the door and saying, hey, hello, I need a little attention here. But basically seeing that I was portraying hurts that I had as a child onto my own kids in those moments.
So how did you go about peeling back the layer and getting to know your inner child?
Yeah. So through the involvement of one of the groups that I was in, I met some women who I consider to be wiser than me. They had a lot of experience. They also had a really great foundation in their faith. And that was something that I had resisted a lot throughout my life. And so I kind of took note. I was like, okay, I see these women as a role model. I would be silly not to lean into that or just really investigate on my own. What does that mean? And so I did. I had a woman who at that group, I say she had a really bold moment with me, but she told me, Leah, you have a father that loves you. I didn't know what she meant. And so I took it upon myself to really start understanding. As I was going through the process of learning on my own, then I started to see how my heart was hardened towards some different things throughout my life and how it just really needed to be reworked. And that really started to help my own interactions towards other people around me, specifically the people that I love the most.
I want to go back to the groups you mentioned, because as Leah said, she's from this area, grew up in Pacific, now lives a little bit outside of the city of St. Louis, but a local gal. She's one of us. How did you get connected to these different groups? And was it hard to find them, or once you started looking for them, were they there the whole time?
So social media, it does help. Now, I have a love-hate relationship with social media.
We all do.
We all do, right? But yes, you can find different groups that may align with what you're looking for. Specifically, the group that I was involved with was a MOPS organization, so Mothers of Preschoolers.
And I have never even heard of this.
Yeah, and I don't honestly know which areas have them, but I'm sure if you go to their website, you can find one of them, you know. But I was lucky enough that in the area that I live in, there was a group. And initially, I joined that just to make friends, be surrounded by other moms. I didn't realize that I was going to have what I call a God moment, but that's the way it all worked out. It was pretty cool.
And as I started this conversation, kudos to you for putting yourself out there by emailing me. Kudos to you for finding these groups and being an active player.
Right.
Something that I frankly stink at is I do find these mom groups on Facebook, but then I find myself just being the reader and not engaging. And what a lost opportunity it sounds like I might be having, that you went full in and an interaction with a gal changed your life.
Yeah, it's our brain wants us to stay in our comfort zone. And like, you would think that your brain should be your best friend, but sometimes it does not treat you that way. And it really is, you know, the power of our thoughts. And if you, yes, put yourself out there just a little bit, just like a tiny little step forward, could literally open so many doors for you. Or yeah, that interaction, you could just have that moment of like, wow, that was life-giving. One thing that person said to me made me interested.
Do you ever think what life would be like if that gal did not go to that meeting that day, or she had to rush off to pick up her child from soccer, whatever the case may have been for her, if she would not have said, Leah, you have a father that loves you? Do you ever think about what life would be like if those words hadn't come out of her mouth?
Oh, I mean, I try not to think, like try not to think back of that, but like I was telling my husband the other night, because I knew you were going to ask me, like, what was it like when I was losing my marbles? And I was like, I don't want to think back to that, but I know that I do, because it is important to share with other women. And so yeah, I could see that if that interaction didn't happen, I could have been stuck in my own thoughts for a very long time. I could be spiraling in patterns that I did not want to be spiraling in. It was a life-changing day.
So many of the words, though, you have said are words that I have said to my mom and my closest friends. I have flat out said, I feel like I'm spiraling. We mentioned this on in our interview that you will see on today's My St. Louis Live, the thoughts of being a failure. I didn't know these things existed until I was in charge of 2 little lives. And that can be really overwhelming.
Yes, absolutely, it is. I mean, we were given a gift, and when you look at them, like for me, it was a reality check of like, you're not treating this gift very well. And that's not what I wanted by any means. So it's on me to make different choices.
Leah mentioned she joined groups with women who are wiser than her, but you are gathering that this gal is very, very wise, and I'm so thankful that she's sticking around for the entire hour. We are going to take a quick break. I'm going to lean across you. I apologize on this Monday. Let's go ahead and show you what it looks like out there. It sure is pretty, so we give you a live look at the Gateway Arch. We'll take a 2-minute break, come back, and yeah, I'm going to ask Leah the question that she just talked to her husband about that she didn't want me to ask, but I'm going to ask it, because we are all going to empathize with her. What is the moment when you feel like you are losing your marbles? So stick with us. You are watching the First Alert 4 Digital News Desk.
First Alert 4 Digital News Desk, driven by Don Brown Chevrolet.
It is Monday, January the 13th, friends. I'm Laura Hettiger. Happy to have you along here on the 11 o'clock hour of the First Alert 4 Digital News Desk. We have another LH with us today, Leah Harper. So what's your middle name start with?
M.
Okay, mine starts with a K. I was going to say, my goodness, there's just too many similarities right here. Leah is a local gal, a mom of 2. She has a 9-year-old son, 6-year-old daughter, and she is now a life coach. And if you're with us just before the break, I mentioned that I am going to ask you the question that you talked to your husband, you didn't really want to answer. But you pitched this as kind of feeling like you are losing your marbles. What do you mean when you say something like that? Or maybe some of your clients that you have worked with when they say that?
Basically, it's just snapping. Just having that moment where something might fly out of your mouth that you horribly regret, or an action that you do. It was really just more like the teapot analogy. There's a teapot on the stove and it's boiling, and then all of a sudden the steam starts coming out and it makes this horrible noise. Like that moment is really what I'm talking about when I'm saying, like, you get to a point where you feel like you are losing your marbles.
So I'll be very candid. I hit mine on Halloween, and I know that sounds silly, but I feel like Halloween lasted for a month. And I just felt all the pressure to make all of it special, and that it was always on me. And I remember my husband walked in, and the kids were already dressed up, and I don't even know what he asked. Probably like the most innocent question ever, but I was cutting up strawberries, and whatever it was, it just felt like something else was being piled on me. And I picked up the strawberries and I threw them on the ground. And I'm not one to like hit at all or like launch things across the room. And that was it. Like, something has to change. And I had to do what you have had to do, take those steps where you look in the mirror and say, okay, what changes? And I was mad at myself for ever letting myself get to that point. So in what you do as a life coach, how do you help women before they get to the I threw the strawberries moment?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, thank you for sharing that, because that's huge, right? I mean,
It was not good.
No, I get it. I had one of those moments too, and in that heat of the moment, I said something towards my 5-year-old at the time that I just was like, wow, that never should have come out of my mouth, nor was it intended. So like your strawberry moment, right? It's just us as humans releasing those emotions that we have.
How do we release them healthier before we get to the what we're saying or the what we're throwing?
Yeah, so one of the things that I love and was so impactful when I first started working with my own life coach was that basically I was identifying all these feelings that I had towards myself, but then she helped me realign with truly who I am as a person. Because oftentimes as moms, we're defined by the things the world puts on us, right? I'm a mom of 2, I'm busy, I'm a life coach. Like, all of those things are the labels that the world gives us. It does not truly define who I am inside as a person. And it's more going through that exercise was such a pivotal moment to where she taught me to utilize that statement. So it is an I am statement, and I help women bring it out of them. You know who you are. But right now, our judgment's really clouded by the way that the world tells us to be. So in that moment, when you learn who you truly are, it's kind of like that stopping point. You're like, okay, would this person throw the strawberries? Most likely she wouldn't. So it is a pattern interrupt. It is a moment where you stop, you take a big deep breath, and you remember, okay, who am I? I'm not the woman who's going to spew out hurtful words towards my children. I'm not going to throw things. But at the same time, because this is growing, you are still going to mess up. I bet you're still going to throw something. okay? It's gonna happen.
Poor
But you
strawberries and
have to-
blueberries.
Yes, you have to give yourself grace in those moments and know that you want to improve your behavior. And then the goal there is to prolong when it happens. That's always been something that I'm mindful of. Okay, I lost my marbles. Let's say I lost them last Monday when school, was out. And then it spiraled into maybe a week-long moment. But really knowing, okay, now I'm going to track how much longer it is till my next moment.
So what do you do in your life, and some of the women you've worked with, what have they done to prolong the moments?
Yeah, a lot of shifting habits, a lot of the mindset work, what we are allowing infiltrate our brains. I often think of our thoughts as a record player that's just spinning in our mind constantly. And it comes a point that you're gonna realize, okay, this record needs to be changed and I need to go for a more maybe positive route versus the negative self-talk that we have.
So I'm going to push you
Yeah.
on that with asking how, because some of the conversations I have with my friends and myself is I'm not going to say every day feels like it's on a loop, but I have said to my husband, before I ever walk out the door in the morning, I feel like I've already run a marathon because I've had to do 58 things to even get us to the point to walk out the door. And some of my best moments of my morning are the marathon, and seeing my son give his sister a hug and dropping the toast, and then there's a chase between the dog and my son to get the toast. Like, these are things I would not change.
Right.
I love them. But then to go through the whole workday and then the chaos of pickup and trying to do 15 things all at the same time, it feels like it never stops. And that's where the buildup comes. So I have a hard time, and my girlfriends do too, finding outlets in the day.
Yeah.
How do you do that where you do change the record? You've realized it needs to be changed. How do you actually make the change?
Yeah, that makes sense. So I would say personally for me, one of the biggest things was leaning more into my faith. Okay. You might not have your girlfriends surrounding you, but I do believe that we have this spiritual presence that is constantly with us. And that is when I've learned to lean into that a lot. And, throw up a prayer, right? Like, it's just that conversation that you can have and say, hey, I need some help here. Can you wrap your arms around me? Can I feel your presence? Can you help me find joy in these moments where I'm truly feeling like it's going to build up and I'm going to snap? Or, and I think it's a lot like that. You have to shift to seeing the good in those moments rather than the bad or the things that are gonna make you just lose it.
And St. Louis, the word saint is in it. This is a very religious community. It is. Think about all the Catholic schools we have. And there are a lot of religious outlets, spiritual outlets. Do you find our age of people, though, don't talk about that as much?
Yeah, I do. Personally, for me, when I learned that I separated, it was because of a bad experience in my past, in my grade school experience. And so I just thought, I don't need this. This isn't for me. It's not benefiting me. I don't need to. How selfish does that sound when I say that out loud, right? But I just recognized I was trying to find fixes in all different places, and it wasn't sustainable. So when I decided, okay, I'm going to lean into my faith, I'm going to truly understand what that means. I do feel that faith and religion, there's a difference. There are beliefs in faith and beliefs in religion, and sometimes they mingle and sometimes they don't, and it's up to us to truly use our discernment. What feels right to you? I feel like those are little God nudges. I knew when I started going back to a church because I wanted to learn and be filled. That specific church, I started feeling God nudges within me saying, hey, this isn't the place, and you can move on, and that's okay. I think a lot of people, perhaps our age, probably think that, oh, this is how I was raised, this is how I have to continue, because, oh, there might be some moments of shame or guilt, maybe not necessarily intentionally by those around us, but it happens. And so, you know, I've had those moments. I've had a conversation with my mom because we don't align the same there anymore. And I just said, I'm very thankful that you have not made me feel guilty for my choices and where I choose to go now or how I choose to practice my faith. And she just said, honestly, Leah, I'm just so glad you found a place that you enjoy. And that's so true. And I wish that a lot of people would just realize, like, we need the support. We don't need the judgment. And truthfully, when I started learning more, I just really started recognizing what spirit those come from. Judgment, shame, it's not the spirit that I want anything to do with. I truly want the support, the loving, the compassion, the patience, the kindness. That's the spirit that I want support from. And so I'll lean into that. And it does translate into my interactions with everyone else in the world.
And we are going to get into more of that. We're going to take a quick break, come back, more with Leah Harper. If you are interested in learning more about her, what is your website?
It is leahharpercoaching.com.
leahharpercoaching.com.
Contact Leah. Spot there.
And again, she is a local gal. This isn't someone that is just passing through St. Louis. She gets St. Louis, she gets family dynamics, and she gets the chaos of the weather and how that plays into family dynamics, because she's been living it over the last week. We're going to take a quick break, come back, more with Leah Harper here on the First Alert 4 Digital News Desk.
First Alert 4 Digital News Desk, driven by Don Brown Chevrolet.
It's a Monday. It's cold out. We're happy that you were staying inside, hopefully, and bundled up and joining us here on the First Alert 4 Digital News Desk. I'm Laura Hettiger, and for the very first time in 2025, we have a guest in the 11 o'clock hour. It is Leah Harper, a local mom of two and life coach, and we have been talking about all things, not just parenting, but kind of life in general. And your life, I'm so impressed that you are still so young and are willing to reflect and make changes. Because so often you don't. You in general, you just keep kind of going on the path, and maybe things aren't working, but whatever, let's keep going the way we're going. You've made some really big positive life changes that I'm guessing have brought you much more peace and happiness.
Yes.
Especially with your kids.
Yes, absolutely. So I just recognized that at a certain point in my life, the little girl within me was, I would say, it causing me to have adult temper tantrums. Let's just put it that way. She was in there and she was like, hey, I'm still hurting and you haven't acknowledged that. And that was honestly a big moment for me to say, okay, I'm gonna start opening up. I had a childhood that, let's just say, society doesn't paint the picture of like, oh, that this happens often, but in fact it does, where homes are not necessarily the healthiest environments, where emotions aren't being handled very well. I did have my mom, basically, she was the person that provided an income to our home. I was around my dad quite a bit. But my dad, he turned to gambling, he turned to drugs, he turned to many different addictions, and he hurt a lot of people along that path, and I was one of them. I had a relationship that was pretty strong with my dad growing up. And as you know, any little girl, and this was something I was seeing within my own child and towards my husband, my daughter, she absolutely adores her dad. And I thought to myself, wow, I was that little one. And at a certain point, that was taken away. It was almost like it was my first breakup, let's put it that way. But I never talked about it with anyone. I never really explained what happened in my life, and I just continued to shove it down, kept it hidden, because it was we don't talk about this mentality, and I don't feel like that's healthy at all.
Mm-hmm. And you are talking about it.
I am talking about
now.
it, yes.
And do you feel like that has helped heal your inner child?
Yes, absolutely. So when I first started talking about it, it was when my child's school was celebrating Red Ribbon Week, which is basically where they teach about what drugs can do to you. Mm-hmm. Essentially, probably back when we were in school, it was DARE, mm-hmm. But
and it was a really big deal.
It was a big deal.
Yeah.
And I had a particular experience that taught me this is not what I want to do. And in that moment, it was when I was 9. My dad had me across from a table from him, and I witnessed him putting a needle into his vein. And it wasn't, I knew it wasn't good. I didn't exactly know what it was, but I just knew, okay, that was his teaching moment in a very strange way. But to this day, that has not ever been something that I wanted to touch. So anyway, I did start talking about it. I used social media as my outlet because I was like, why not? Many different people can read this, and it might be helpful to someone. Sure enough, when I shared that experience, just being thankful for Red Ribbon Week, that children are learning about this, and also encouraging parents to talk about it in their home too. But basically, I started seeing some response from people sending me messages it was enough evidence for me to see that I should keep going.
This is resonating.
Yeah, it's resonating. It's okay to open up because you are at least helping one person heal. It wasn't for me, but it was for the others that don't yet have the courage. So I want to inspire them.
But once you did start talking about it, how did that also help you heal?
Yeah, so it has opened a lot of doors. Again, I've talked about faith. That has been a big piece to this whole healing journey, leaning into that, fully understanding. But yes, maybe my earthly dad wasn't the greatest, but yet I do have a heavenly Father that is constantly for me. And that was huge because I never felt like that. I had other family members around me that supported me, but at the end of the day, whenever you're a child, you should think that your parents are the two that should be guiding you. And whenever you see that maybe you don't feel the love, that hurts. Mm-hmm. So moving forward in my healing journey, I then shared with a group of women how 2 weeks after my son was born, my father was involved in an incident where he is now in prison. And he has been in prison for almost 10 years, somewhere around there. And at that time, I truly felt relieved because I was like, wow, okay, he's off the streets. He's not going to hurt himself. He's not going to hurt other people. He kind of was out of sight, out of mind. I didn't have a relationship. It was strained. But he was still there, right? Like he was still around. He was still out there. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily close to me, but still around. And so when that day came, I was relieved.
Not to speak for you, but was there almost closure knowing that when you would pop into a grocery store, you wouldn't see him?
Yes. And I think because I could see nothing had changed. And I'll back up a little bit. When I first moved back to Missouri, I had a friend who had her dad died in a motorcycle accident. And so I had this thought of, okay, I'm here, maybe I should initiate a relationship with him. We are in the same area. And so I went to a family reunion, and he showed up, and I could tell nothing had changed. And so the thought of a relationship quickly flew out the window, and I just went about my day. And that was it. That was 2013. Fast forward to 2015 is when the incident happened. And so 2013 was honestly when I last saw him. Then going forward again in my healing journey, I did come to a point where I initiated visitation to see him. And this was a big move because I never ever thought that that would happen. Initially, my intent was to go say, hey, if you ever get out, please do not think that you're going to have anything to do with my family. That's not the intention that happened the day that I actually went to visit. But I was at church one morning. I heard the message loud and clear, and it was, forgive your enemies, don't hold a grudge. And he was the only person that I felt that with. And so I came home, and I told my husband, hey, I'm going to take a drive. And he was like, where are you going? I'm like, well, I'm going to go to Jeff City. And so sure enough, I drove by myself. I went and visited my dad.
That day?
After
hearing that message?
Yes, it was February 19th. 2023, yeah. Honestly, that was the best conversation I've ever had with him. He didn't know I was coming.
You didn't know when you woke up that day?
I didn't know. Yeah, I did not know. So it was an experience. I will tell you that again, movies do not paint the picture of what it's really like. But I had an adult conversation with my dad. And that day, I felt it was necessary to tell him, hey, you planted a good seed in this world, and here I am. And that's not the message that I initially thought that I was going to be giving him, but that's the message that God intended with the rework of my heart and my mind and my thoughts and everything. It truly was the best day. And then, going forward, I've been writing my dad letters, and he now knows how to email, which I get a lot of emails. In fact, I do have a stack of like 6 letters. He writes a lot. But it's like I have 6 to go through still because it's so constant. But to my knowledge, myself and my grandmother, who is 90 years old, were the only 2 that communicate with him. And to imagine going through life without having any type of support from your family is hard.
Your story is amazing, and the forgiveness that you found in yourself is powerful. And I would have to think you feel lighter.
Oh, yeah. Yes. When I've described, when I've lifted that lid off of that trash can that I kept for so long, like, yes, there's a weight lifted off of you. And that's where it's so important to seek help, whether it is leaning more into your spiritual and your faith. Like, that was for me, again, I say it is the missing piece to the puzzle. And so, yes, I can definitely say 100% he would say that a huge transition has happened through me. I am still a human, and I still do have every once in a while little moments of maybe tossing the strawberries, right? Because it happens, and we have to give ourselves grace. We cannot keep beating ourselves up over those moments, but yet not letting those moments completely take over your life. Recognize it, see that you want to change.
So when you are in the heat of the moment, what do you do? Because that's really hard.
Yeah. So I will say now, thankfully, because of the work that I've been doing, working with my own life coach who has certified me, that those things that she taught me has really helped me realign whenever it happens. It doesn't happen as often as it once did, but over repetition of practicing the things that she's taught me has been so important. So that specific I am statement, remembering, okay, who truly is Leah? It's not the things of the world, but recognizing who I am and then saying, okay, would she throw things? Would she say horrible things? No, she wouldn't.
So what are some of the I am statements, as we do wrap this up, that some of your clients have found with themselves?
Yeah, so some of them is I am a friendly, approachable, kind woman of, and then I give the option, but I truly do feel like saying woman of God, or if you know, it's not a prerequisite for working with me, but I am a faithful person, so I will say that's, you know, my statement, or I am confident, I am, like, there's just so many powerful words that you can remember in your head that isn't the negative things that we often default to. Like you said, I'm a horrible cook. No, you're probably not. There are worse, but
There are probably worse.
You
but
are a cook who is learning to be better.
I am someone who doesn't like to cook. Is that okay?
That is okay. That's
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
You're owning that.
I am.
Yeah.
But my kids are younger than yours. My son just turned 2, and I take them to and from daycare every day. And it's about a 10-minute drive each way. And I want those 10 minutes to be more meaningful than me listening to the radio. And I try to use those I am statements with them. Even at those young ages, I want to instill in them that they are capable. That's one I keep going back to.
Yes.
We talked off camera how a lot of people play the victim, and that really annoys me.
Yeah.
I don't want them to ever say, well, I can't do that. No, you are capable.
Yes.
Maybe you're not going to be the best at it, but you are capable of at least trying something. And you are brave, you are smart, you are strong. But I can't tell you the last time I ever told myself that.
Right?
And that's, I think, something I could be better at. I know my girlfriends could be better at too when we have these conversations.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it truly does start with us. That's the thing. You know, our children are going to be reflections of us. And when you really stop to think about that, it will make you think about some of the behaviors or habits that you are showing them. And you think, gosh, do I want them to grow up thinking that this is okay? You know, we all have our habits. We all have things that we can change about ourselves. But you're right, it's, do you stay in the victim mentality? Do you blame others, or do you choose to do something about it?
You can make that choice today. It's a sunny day, no time like the present, and the presents can be a present to you. There were days that changed your life without a doubt. Just a few words that sounds like totally changed the path of your life.
Yeah, absolutely did.
And maybe this conversation, just listening at home, or maybe as you're at your desk, maybe it lit a fire in you to make a change too. LeahHarperCoaching.com.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing so much with us and being open and honest. And I'm just so impressed by all the local people who are doing big things and making the world a better place. And Leah definitely falls in that category.
Thank you.
So thank you for being here. LeahHarperCoaching.com. First alert for digital news desk. Snow is still out there, my friends. It's going to be there for a while. We're going to send you to First Alert 4 at noon with Claire Kellett and meteorologist Kent Earhart. We hope you have a great day.